everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Just as our community was starting to get used to our new normal after 12 people died at the hands of a lone gunman in Virginia Beach, our sorrow became fresh all over again this past weekend. 31 people were murdered and dozens of others shot in two mass shootings within a 24-hour period in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. It's what hate looks like. A recent inductee into the Football Hall of Fame implores white people to please listen. We'll talk about it. And the world lost a literary giant this week. We salute Toni Morrison. These topics and more with the award-winning Another View Roundtable. We'll be right back.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Lots to talk about with our award-winning Another View Roundtable, but before we get started, let me invite you to join me tomorrow, Saturday, August the 10th, at Jamestown Settlement for Finding Angelo, fascinating history about the first African woman mentioned by name to come to English North America in 1619. Scholars share the backstory of blacks in England and Angola and set the context for the first Africans to come ashore at Fort Comfort, which is now Fort Monroe in Hampton. Historians share what we know about Angelo and why this history is just now coming to light. Plus, Angelo comes alive through historical interpretation. I have the pleasure of moderating the afternoon panel, and I sure hope to see you there. Visit historyisfun.org for more information. That's historyisfun.org for more information. So let's get to our Another View Roundtable Pundits. She's the expert on all things relational, and she is the host of the Lion's Den radio show. Please welcome pundit Alvian Lyons. Hey, Alvian.
Hey, everybody.
Her life is one of service as the former vice mayor of Norfolk, former state delegate, and now is the treasurer of the city of Norfolk. Please welcome Dawn Hester. Hey, Dawn.
Hi, everybody.
Good to have you with us. She was born in Smithfield, but her love of education brought her to the big city of Norfolk and Norfolk State University. Please welcome political science professor Carol Pretlow. Hey, Carol.
Hey, I love that you mentioned Smithfield.
Absolutely. And she believes the best way to live life is through laughter with clean comedy. Please welcome comedian Allison Moore.
Hey, I got to put some more stuff for my resume. Next time, it's going to be better. Watch y'all. Stay tuned, listeners.
You know, it's really funny because every second Friday of the month we're going to be getting together and talking, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, how else can I introduce these folks?
Don't even worry. Note to self.
Note to self.
You got your homework.
Oh gosh, well we have a lot to get to in all seriousness. So after last week's horrific mass shootings in Dayton and El Paso, President Trump addressed the nation and condemned white supremacy. Let's take a listen.
The shooter in El Paso posted a manifesto online consumed by racist hate. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul.
But many of the Democratic hopefuls for president were quick to point out that it's the president's rhetoric that fuels the hate.
We have a problem with this rising tide of supremacy, white supremacy in America. And we have a president who encourages and emboldens it. How far is it from Trump saying this is an invasion to the shooter in El Paso declaring, quote, "This attack is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas"? How far is it from white supremacists and neo-Nazis in Charlottesville, Trump's very fine people chanting, "You will replace us," to the shooter at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh saying, "Jews are committing genocide on his people"? I don't think it's that far at all. It's both clear language and in code. This president has fanned the flames of white supremacy in this nation.
White supremacists. And these acts of hatred do not happen in a vacuum. They are harvested only once they have been planted. It was sowed by those who spoke the same words the El Paso murderer did, warning of an invasion. It was sowed by those who spoke of an infestation of disgusting cities, rats, and rodents, talking about majority-minority communities. It was sowed by those who've drawn an equivalence between neo-Nazis and those who protest them. You reap what you sow. The act of anti-Latino, anti-immigrant hatred we witnessed this past weekend did not start with the hand that pulled the trigger. It did not begin when a single white supremacist got into his car to travel 10 hours to kill as many human beings as he could.
Now, that was presidential candidate Joe Biden and also Cory Booker. Alvian, I'll start with you. There's now a call out from the Democrats, and also just to make sure that we are being fair, Nebraska State Legislator Representative John Collister tweeted on Sunday that the Republican Party is enabling white supremacy in our country. As a lifelong Republican, it pains me to say this, but it's the truth. He went on to say we have a Republican president who continually stokes racist fears in his space. He calls certain countries, I can't say the word, holes, tells women of color to go back to where they came from, and lies more than he tells the truth. So it's not just the Democrats.
It's not.
It's also Republicans.
Mm-hmm. It's people of principle.
Is the rhetoric a part of why El Paso and Dayton happened?
Well, let's. And I think one of the things that we're running into in this nation is that we've become so party polarized that we can't even hear common sense in a conversation. So if I'm a D, no matter what any other D says, I'm with them. If I'm an R, no matter what, and R's being different, because I really should say if I'm a T, because Republicans and Trumpians are two different crowds. So I have countless Republican friends who I love dearly, dearly, dearly. And I will admit, I have voted on both sides of the aisle. I tend to be very politically independent. So it is not the R that seems to be the problem, admittedly for me. This is my just life according to Al, okay? It's the T that I struggle with, because the T no longer has what made the R what it was, what made Reagan who he was, even despite our political differences, what made Bush who he was, both Bushes for that matter, what made John McCain, whom I actually adore, those were R's. This is a new generation. These are T's. So the polarization between the D's and the T's is such that we hear nothing. So let me just say this. If we take it out of that in terms of parties and the rhetoric associated with parties, and we think about families, because we are an American family. If you go to a household where the parents don't value education, you are not surprised when kids are low performing in school, because the conversation inside of the household suggests that education doesn't matter. If you go to a household that promotes sports and entertainment above academics, you're not surprised when the students value those things, or the children value those things above the academics. Now, the parents aren't telling the kids don't care about school, but what the parents are communicating in their conversation, in their rhetoric, is that this is more important than that. We would have no difficulty whatsoever being able to point to the parental influence, the leadership of that household, and its impact on the children inside of that household. But yet, we struggle with making that same direct correlate in leadership when we're talking about the president or the father of our nation and what the children inside of the nation are doing. If we just talk about this just in terms of the practical human dynamics and less about the party associations, we would be able to acknowledge where wrong is wrong and where right is right. But because of our D's and our T's, because I'm not saying ours, that is why we're having a hard time with what we know we should be honest about.
Dawn.
Oh, I just wanted to do something when you said father of our nation. OMG. I cannot imagine that man being the father of our nation. He is not. He is number 45 until we get him out. So, do I think his rhetoric had something to do with the shooting in El Paso? The answer is yes. Don't know about the other one because we don't have enough information as far as I'm concerned. But the one in El Paso, yes, his rhetoric is igniting everything. And the data will show us that, that we're on a rise, that mass shootings have risen in the past 3 years. So the data shows that. And it's his pre-candidacy and then as he won.
Yeah, because even before he became President Trump, even
Right.
I mean
That's
his speech for announcing his candidacy, he talked about
Can I say one
Mexicans.
thing in support of what she just said? That to the data points, because our listeners like statistics.
You know, I thought about that this morning when I was coming in.
Since we're on data points, every county that hosted a Trump rally saw a 226% rise in hate crimes, according to the FBI, that was shared in a Washington Post article just recently. So, and then even Christopher Wray, acting FBI director, was speaking to the floor to say that this level of domestic terrorism, completely rooted in white nationalism, white supremacy, has become the number one problem for us domestically, above jihadist, above. So to your point, the statistics absolutely support what is being said.
Carol, when you heard the president's speech, what was your reaction?
Wow, I cringed, and because I expected so much more. Now, I know that typically he does tend to incite controversy, but I thought back to other presidents, both Bush's, Clinton, Reagan, and particularly Obama. And I know Trump has this blind side when it comes to Obama. But the reality is that we look at our presidents as models for our society, reflections of us. And so no matter their political stand on it, when there has been an emergency, 9/11, the president was the representative of all the people, and not it wasn't a me, I moment. It was a we moment, and this president dropped the ball.
Well, Allison, did you believe him?
No, it didn't feel or seem sincere. And then in a time where we're looking for authenticity, in a time where everybody's like, okay, we're not expecting perfection, but you got to be real. He wasn't. It didn't feel real. It didn't make me say, okay, I believe him, I trust him, we're going to move in a different direction. Even if I put my past feelings about the president to the side and say, okay, well, if I started with you today, let's see how you responded to this today. Still dropped the ball. Still didn't make me feel like you care about those who've lost these people. Like nothing.
No.
It was just...
And, you know, I think that because of what happened in Virginia Beach, we're probably even more hypersensitive to what has happened in these other communities and can relate with them. But so here's the major question. What do we do about these gun laws? And is gun laws, are changing the gun laws going to change these incidents from happening? Because that's the thing I struggle with.
I don't know if it's changing gun laws.
Or making gun laws. How about that?
Yeah, because we do need to, in my opinion, the AK-47 that is the weapon of choice, mass murder weapon of choice. I don't think anyone should be able to own that. Now, if you want to go to a gun range and use it and shoot, but you can't take it home. That's just how I feel, especially when we see that the individuals who are deranged and doing these mass killings are using this type of weapon. So if you don't want to do that, but you had a gun, but then you can't get all these, what you call them things?
Bump stocks.
The
magazines and all of that. Right.
Limit the magazine to 25.
Yeah, because they said the guy in Dayton, it was 220 rounds
that he had
on him.
Right. Yeah.
And over 100 in the piece that he had
right. So,
yeah.
So let's limit that to 25. At least that's going to cut down on potentially the amount of killings that we have. And we also have to, as people, we are a traumatized country. So, we saw the incident, some of us saw the incident in New York where a motorcycle backfired and everybody ran.
Yeah.
And so, like the man this morning or yesterday walking into Walmart with his rounds all on him. Did y'all hear that one? That's a new one. He was just in the Walmart walking around taking video.
Well,
so the other piece is legislation, and I'm going to stop.
No, go ahead.
We have to give our federal security agencies the tools that they need to investigate and prosecute domestic terrorism.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have the same.
Well, and we also
ability
have
use
to
those
define
tools.
domestic terrorism as a crime.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because right now it is not defined
for me. That's
as a crime.
Probably one of the first things we need to do. You think they're gonna do it?
I think
Carol?
that if they really scrunch down, they could do it in the House. But I don't think it will get to the Senate. I think it'll be
Well,
this
now, Mitch
constant debate.
McConnell did say that he is willing when the Senate comes back, because he's not going to call them back early, but when they come back, that he would be willing to talk about more background checks and maybe improving the, what do they call those laws? Where if you are red flag, thank you, the red flag laws.
Well, maybe my confidence in the Senate is just down to zero because it's controlled by Republicans, and I don't think they're going to do anything to counter the president. And I think that it'll go through the House, but then it'll get to the Senate, and then it'll get stopped.
We were laughing because Allison was writing down red
So go home and research red flag.
Red flag.
I use red flag, but not for this.
Red flag laws when you have something in your background. So if you have some mental health issues, or if you have a criminal past, so those would be things that would be red flags for you to look at a little further before you decide
give them a gun.
And it also allows for law enforcement to be able to petition a court in an emergency situation to have weaponry removed from the individual who may be exhibiting concerning behaviors.
Gotcha.
So
and a little like the commercial piece leading into before you came back on, and where they're talking about Walmart removing those things
the images and the videos and so forth. Yeah,
I think that's not necessarily going to help. Some of our older people, but at least the younger people, I think people are going to start to see, or they're going to start to see a cause and reaction when they pull those video games off, because like our kids, they're that's normalized to them, right?
Right, they're desensitized to violence.
You start messing with these people's games now. I'm telling you, my kid shut down. Do you understand me? He goes into a whole piece of sand when I take away his game. So watch. You start taking these games and they're hunting stuff. Okay, you can't mess with the deers then if y'all gonna keep playing with these guns.
Yeah,
we're gonna see some changes,
and there will be some changes from there. So, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as because my goal is always to appeal to those who may naturally be in opposition to something. So. What is very true about our conservative brothers and sisters is they tend to be very military supportive, and they tend to be very law enforcement supportive. And I would just say to them, for those who love to listen just to be irritated by the conversations that we have, kind of like when I listen to Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh, right? Yeah. Same experience. Welcome to the club. So just in support of our law enforcement, there should never be a time that a civilian has more gun power than your law enforcement. And we saw that happen where Sandy Hook was concerned. We saw that happen in Parkland, that the security that was on site who could have intervened was so far outgunned than the individual themselves that I think that it's a betrayal to law enforcement to not be supportive of legislation that ensures that when they come to do their job, they have a right to go home to their families each night. And for all of the good cops, because I fundamentally believe they're more good than bad, and I believe police and pastors have the same problems. When there are a few really bad ones, it gets a whole lot of publicity. And because I work alongside both of them very often, and there's so much commonality in and their experiences, I don't think that it is fair for people who can call themselves conservatives and patriots to allow for there to be a system in place that your law enforcement, never mind all the rest of us, but your law enforcement that you say that you love, you don't care if they're in a position that they can't even protect the people that they have been called to serve because you want to protect the NRA over your law enforcement.
You know, I thought it was really interesting because it reminds me of when I was in Baltimore back in the spring, and there was a shooting at a high school, and the security guards was so frustrated because the school system had determined that they did not want the kids to see the security guards walking around school with weapons. So they had to keep their weapons in a locker.
So,
that's
so
perfect.
somebody walks into Douglas High School and shoots a teacher. And the security person is between him, the shooter, and his weapon, which is in the locker behind the shooter. You know, and their whole, you know, their union was on, everybody was on, and they were all talking about the fact, you know, what's better for our kids to know that they can be safe, or you want this image of not walking around with a gun, and so therefore we have no firepower. To your point,
Yeah.
So they changed that rule, didn't they?
yeah, I
I
believe
mean, I hope
they.
so,
I believe
because
they
shooters
did.
are not scheduling an appointment.
But
So what time are you
surely
coming in?
are
Okay,
not.
well, let me go get my gun. Let me be 5 minutes early to the
Exactly.
meeting with
So-
my gun.
well, and so to bring up Baltimore and the whole idea of our president once again saying that, or painting an entire city that is majority minority as rat infested, and you know, talking
Never
about my
mind John
hometown,
Hopkins.
it really
Never mind. Right.
you know, never mind a lot of the great things that are happening in the city, but this whole idea of attacking Congress people of color and therefore their areas and so forth. Now, I read a lot of people saying, well, it's true, Baltimore does have rats.
It's number 3 in crime rates.
Yeah, and in crime rates. Okay. So is that Elijah Cummings' fault? Or is that,
And let's
or
also
is
be
that
clear
our
about the
inner
difference between the
cities?
district and Baltimore as a whole, because
Exactly.
he
I was
represents
gonna
a
ask.
district.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And well, and the whole point of isn't this indicative of our inner cities across the
whole.
country? It doesn't matter. You know, he just happened to single out Baltimore.
Right, because of him.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we have issues in the inner city. Granted. And the local government is supposed to be a part of leading the charge to make a difference.
Exactly.
But the local government can only do what it can with the local money that they have to be able to put to those issues. So when the state decreases the level of funding for education and for building a community, the city can't do what they used to do. When the feds, because the federal government have reduced the amount of money that comes into communities to make a difference, then the local government can't do what it wants to do.
Because the local government doesn't have the tax
So-
base
Right.
to
It
be
can't
able
do
to
it
do
by
that.
itself.
It can't do it by
It
itself.
can't do
right.
it by itself, because in local government, you're pretty much just trying to keep your basic services going. So at the state legislature, we are still like, I don't want to use statistics, but I know we're still way behind on where we used to be 20 years ago in the level of funding that we would give for education. And so we wonder why we don't have enough teachers. We wonder why teachers aren't coming into the profession. We wonder why our kids are being taught by individuals who may have a degree but not in the specialty in which they're teaching in the classroom as long-term substitutes. All of that is I don't want to use trickle down. All of that is the impact of what's happening at the federal level and the state level and the local level. If you don't have the means to do all the things, then each locality, each city
Is impacted.
is right. And they're trying to figure out how to do the best they can with what they have.
So is what Trump said, was that a racist comment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, see, okay. So,
Okay. We got 2 yeses and wait a minute and a
I got a notepad.
like, wait a
Me
minute.
and millennials
Now,
are
let me
listening
say
to learn.
Okay.
that if he were, what he said was racist, but if he were having a conversation about the statistics and the necessity for intervention to support those in in those that are represented in those statistics, I would not have had an issue with it at all. It's not the facts that I have a problem with. It's your packaging of the facts.
Yes.
So your packaging is designed to incite certain kinds of things. Your packaging, for most people of color, we're not running around trying to make every white person racist. Many of us love white folks. They're in my family. I mean, like, it's just like, so it's not about the white that's the problem. The problem is the hate. And if the hate just happens to come from, that's what makes it racist. And let me make another distinction. And we've had this conversation before, but I sit at tables all the time where I'm the only brown face or the only woman. And when I hear white people say that black people can be racist, I just want to clarify something. Black people can be prejudiced, but they can't be racist. Racism is prejudice plus power. So the ability to subjugate another culture does not exist for people of color. If every black person in America decided today they hated white people, most white people will not be affected in any form or fashion.
We don't have
but
the
if
power.
every white person decided tomorrow that they hated all black people, we would be destroyed. So we have to be clear that racism is a systemic thing. It is not just about whether or not I like you, don't like you. There are black people that are unexcusably prejudiced and bigoted, but that is not the same thing as being racist. So this conversation we're having about race is about the power element that is inherent inside of your position.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about current events with the award-winning Another View Roundtable, relationship expert Alvian Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Dawn Hester, political science professor Carol Pretlow, and comedian Allison Moore. Okay, so I want to play a clip from a gentleman by the name of Champ Bailey. Champ Bailey was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame.
He made me cry.
He retired from the Denver Broncos.
Made me cry.
And in his speech, he had a very strong message. I want to take a listen.
I'm a firm believer that if you want to create change, you better start with your friends and your family. So I'm starting here today. The first thing people see when they look at me is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer or a husband or a father. They view me first as a black man. So on behalf of all the black men that I've mentioned tonight and many more out there who've had the most of the same experiences I've had in my lifetime, we say this to all of our white friends. When we tell you about our fears, please listen. When we tell you we're afraid for our kids, please listen. When we tell you there are many challenges we face because of the color of our skin, please listen. And please do not get caught up in how the message is delivered.
You hear how emotional?
Oh my gosh. Woo.
Go ahead.
That just really it just speaks to my heart. Obviously, if you listening and you have a heart, it does speak to yours too. But that's huge. Like, you're missing the message for the emotions. You miss the message for the words. You know, because white people, well, why you gotta say it like that? Why you got? Okay, well, I'm hurt. Right? I'm frustrated. It's been generations of this that I'm living through. So maybe I'm yelling, or maybe I'm not speaking as properly as you prefer, or maybe I'm not using, or maybe I am using ebonics. But don't disregard the fact that because of the color of my skin, myself, my children, my husband experience something that you will never know. Mm-hmm. That you will never. And then, like, my audiences, I have a lot of people that listen to me. Oh, I love you so much, Allison. You're so funny. Okay, well, don't just let me make you laugh. Listen to my pain points and help me come together. Let's think of a strategy. Or you go home and talk to your parents. I tell my white friends all the time, go tell your parents stop tripping. They gonna listen to you. They're not gonna listen to me. I'm just your black friend. But they listen to you. Explain to them what their viewpoints and how they affect us, and the power that each of you all have to make a difference. Mm-hmm. We need more advocates. Mm-hmm. We need people to speak up.
Yeah. You could hear in his voice the trembling. You know, we hear a lot of our and I know this has been an experience of all of us at this table because we happen to be middle class people, and that's the way people characterize us.
Right.
And so therefore they don't think we have issues, and they don't think that we face the exact same kind of stereotyping and of prejudice and disregard and disrespect that anyone else
Or they think we
Effects.
should get over it, or like, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, but you good now. You have a degree now.
Yeah,
you
they
have a
don't-
house now.
Exactly.
So that was old stuff.
And the degree of the
the
pressure,
pressure.
as you move up in your roles
Oh my goodness.
is harder.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Okay,
Yes.
so as you move up, and then the responsibility of that moving up and making sure that others around you of all hues and genders understand that, yeah, we're on a journey and we're not going to back down from the table. You're going to listen. You must listen because we do impact what you do. So you have to listen to us. You might not like it, but we do impact. And I like now that we're getting ready to equinox and soul cycle.
Yeah.
Don't go.
You were so
Trying to get somebody to pay attention.
yes, what's so
Go ahead.
interesting about that is like I had an experience. I have them often, but this one, you know, is a little more raw, a little more recent. But I had an experience professionally the other day, and I won't go into a whole lot of detail other than to say that when you are the only Black face at a table, and then on top of that, a woman, the level of weight you carry on your back for how you respond to covert, overt, you know,
Every kind
shoot,
of vert.
smoke kind, you know, like just
I know.
racism or prejudice, superiority or privilege, that sometimes you feel like you are swallowing a meteor that's on fire because you cannot respond the way that your counterpart could respond in that moment. You understand that your response will permanently affect the way every other person of color is ever going to be viewed, especially when you're the only one at the table or the first one to the table. That there is a different kind of responsibility that we carry, and we swallow fire every day in order to ensure that we don't close the door on the opportunity for the next person. And my white female friends never have to do that. They don't have to speak on behalf of all white women in America. They don't have to speak on behalf of all white people in America. But people of color are asked to do that all the time because we're often singular. Because of our success, our hard work, and our achievement, we get to tables that our counterparts don't always
But
get to.
that's because you're not like those other Black people.
Because they do the exceptionalism. You get the Oprah effect. You're the acceptable brown, and people get comfortable with you, and they talk around you as if you're not brown anymore. And they make commentary as if you are not brown. And they expect you to not feel it as if you are not brown.
And I think
Carol.
they also miss some of the signals, because I have friends who say, "You're always sarcastic." And I said, yeah. And what you aren't seeing is the hurt and the humiliation that
comes
is-
with it. Yes,
comes-
ma'am.
So when you tell me about the alt-right, and I laugh and make a joke, what you're not seeing is the hurt and the anger
That I am
is
swallowing right now.
Right there.
Yep.
You know, Carol, tell the story that you told us at the beginning. We were talking in the lobby before the show started, and Carol's talked about how she handled going to a white supremacist rally for the Confederacy in support of keeping Confederate statues. And what did you say to this guy?
And he was like, well, it's not about race, it's about heritage. And I said, well, that's interesting, because I understand, but you do know you lost. And people generally don't celebrate a loss. And so I think you might need to wind this back a little bit. But the interesting thing was that we began to talk. He takes the light rail often, and he said he would come to my class and talk. And I said, that's great, because I want to hear different perspectives. And I said, now I have some other comments about, you know, some of the wardrobe choices and all, but let's do it. At first, he said yes, and then 2 weeks later, he said, no, I don't think I better do that. I said, no, they're excited about you coming.
They want to hear you, too.
Wanna hear you.
They do want to hear. You know,
But you also have to make sure that it is an environment where he will feel safe.
Yeah.
Because he will feel like he's coming into the den to be
Right.
where really you're just trying to generate thought.
Well, I did also ask him if he would be more comfortable if some of the class members and I met him downtown in the mall and talked. And I said that would work because I have done that. So,
look at the.
So to Alvin's point too, adding on some of the ways we're just affected. We have to do things differently, right? Just because I'm black. So I'm starting this new venture. I'm gonna do a coffee business, Black Please. So I started the logo. So it's Black Please. And it's a double entendre on the fact that I'm a black-owned business, but more importantly, is the fact that it's coffee. So black was capitalized. And I sent that out to my friends. And the first thing all the black people said was, you got to not make it all capital because they're going to say that you're yelling. And it's just because I'm black. It's those things like that. Like, I don't want to come across like, black, please. Right? But just those small things we have to do differently, or I have to think differently. Just, I don't want them to feel like I'm shouting. I don't want them to feel like I'm the black woman with an attitude. I don't want to, and I remember those types of experiences because I'm the only black person in the meeting. I can't be the angry black woman.
Yeah.
But then when you use sarcasm, they still say,
absolutely.
Anger. And I was like,
Let's talk to Al in Virginia Beach. Hi, Al. You're on the line. Hello, Al. Are you there? Hello?
Al changed his mind.
I thought I heard
think
his
he did.
voice.
Yeah, I did too.
He was holding for a long
Al,
time.
I know. Are you there, Al?
Tom is.
Tom? Okay. Hi, Tom.
Oh, hey, I just spoke up for last sake. I didn't think I was on.
Oh, no.
We're glad you're here, cousin.
We're glad you're here. What's your question?
Or comment.
There's a couple of things we need to straighten out.
Okay.
One is one of the panelists, the first panelist, talking with the R's and T's and trying to separate. I don't think you can do that here. We got a pot that's boiling, and it needs to be stirred. When you have all the Republican Senate and most of the minority in the House failing to speak up against Trump, you have a Republican Trump party. You cannot separate the R's and T's.
Oh, wow.
I don't believe your other guest spoke up to that effect, but I would believe that they would disagree with her just like me.
So you said that they're all the same.
I don't think you can separate it.
Okay.
When the president makes either outlandish tweets or speeches, and common sense would say nobody would really agree with this, and they don't speak up to it. I mean, that's togetherness. You can't take out the T from the R.
Okay.
And another thought
okay.
is how we speak about. We throw out the term rhetoric. This isn't rhetoric. Trump's language and tweets, that's ideology. So I think we need to speak for it the way it is.
Okay, Al, thanks so much. I mean, I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry they put the wrong name up on the screen for me. Tom, thank you so much for your call. Let's, Alvian, you want to respond?
Yeah, so I understand exactly what Tom is saying. I recognize that politically, it is true that they are voting in unison, one with the other. What I will say, though, is when you have conversations with individuals who happen to be or used to consider themselves Republicans, they don't consider themselves Trumpians, per se. They have conservative perspectives, some of which are, maintain that their positions really are about, one-issue voters. It's all about abortion and nothing else. And you get lots of different perspectives. I may vehemently disagree with all of those things, but they are not the same people that you'll find at a Trump rally. So when it comes to the healing in terms of conversations and really being able to engage one with another, I think that we do ourselves a disservice as humans to put everybody in a singular category, because I am not like every other D. I'm not like every other I. Heck, I'm not like every other black person. Like you can't put it all in one box. I do believe that we have a responsibility to speak up to what is right and speak about what's wrong. I do believe that we have accountability for those things, and our silence is unquestionably, we're complicit in our silence. But I do think that there's a difference, because the the George Bushes and the John McCains, just talking politically, and the Reagans would not fit inside of this current Tea Party, as in Tea for Trump party. They would not fit. That's why the Flakes of the world. That's why certain folks, you don't hear Condoleezza Rice. You don't hear, there are certain voices that have gone silent.
Radio silent, yeah.
Because this is not their party anymore.
And I don't like that.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that it's right, but
No,
what
come
I'm
on, Dawn,
saying
but
that it is, they are not the same
expound on that a
people.
little bit.
And I got attitude.
What do you mean? Okay.
Okay, so y'all hear it. I got attitude and I got ebonics. I don't like it when the R's who believe in the conservative business principles of their party are not speaking up because they are afraid to lose power. If you got the money, you gonna have the money. So they can't take it away from you all that fast. So you can still speak up, still have your money and your power, because really money, that's what they equate, money and power.
Money and power.
But
That's
you can
true.
still speak up.
That's-
So all the
that's
black
not speaking
Republicans
against the
that aren't
NRA either.
it's not speaking against anything. It's saying this is wrong.
Yeah.
That's all they have to say. And
So
if
what
enough
Thomas
R's
said-
said it was wrong, it would shut some of that stuff down. Excuse
Thomas
me.
said that he feels like some of us, the other panelists, didn't disagree
with me.
with
Yes.
Alvian. My point, Thomas, is I don't care, because see what happens is it reminds me of, like, if I'm arguing with my husband, he focused on the fact that I'm yelling and not on the fact that you ain't clean. You didn't do what you said you was gonna do. And that's what happens in situations like this. Thomas, you called us in, brother. You my brother. You called us in to talk about the fact that Alvian separated people who support Trump versus people who support Republicans. Forget all of that. What's your solution to helping us on this this situation? Like, I feel like that's just a great way that Alvian can go in on her conversations, because she's here with white people, right? She's the only black face. I'm around a bunch of black people. She's over there with white people, so she's making it easier for them, because what they'll do is get stuck on, well, I don't agree with Trump, and then you're gonna walk out the room. Okay, well, here, look, guess what, I'm gonna take that away from you. You don't agree with Trump, but you are a Republican. Let's talk about some of the issues. And I feel like that oftentimes we get lost in some of the weed. Like, let's stick to the root. Let's talk about what is really important, and not how we classify who says what, when they say how we. Okay, that's great, that's her way,
millennial.
because I'm trying to take notes. I'm trying to learn. And the Trump, the Republicans. She's the wrong person in the room.
Speaking of those, seriously, of words, because
they matter.
they really do matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about, that's why I want to talk about Toni Morrison, because Toni Morrison was unapologetically black.
Yes, she was.
And she spoke her mind. I saw the documentary, Toni Morrison, The Pieces I Am, and you walked out of that theater feeling like you just had met a brand new friend all over again, even beyond her books. It was just incredible. So I want to play a clip of her talking about the fact that the subject matters of her books were something that are mainstream. And this was in response to a woman asking her when was she going to start writing about white people.
It was so stunning, a surprise to me. I felt very representational. I felt American for probably the first time in my life. I felt representative of all African Americans. And I felt hugely a woman receiving this prize, because that's not too common in the halls of the Nobel, alumni. So I felt all those things, knowing full well, as one always does, that no prize has ever made it easier. You still have to look at that blank page. And all of that was always going to be my problem.
My bad. I thought we had the clip about her responding to how she's writing, but she was responding to the fact that she received the Nobel Prize for her literature. What are your thoughts about Toni Morrison? Dawn, let's start with you.
I'm gonna miss her.
Yeah.
Her prose, her wisdom, how she's able to just put to words things that we think and we feel. And I just wish more people would read her books. And I just think it would help you with the understanding the experience, the Black experience, the life experience, because her experience was life.
Absolutely.
She just happened to be a Black woman sharing it.
Absolutely. Carol?
Wow. There's so much, because when I first became familiar with her, I'm not a fiction reader, and I just did it because a colleague said you should read. And oh my gosh, it's the nuances. It's not just the story of the characters, it's the nuances that years later you're like, oh my, I need to go back and figure this out. And then you think you've got it figured out. And say, oh no, but look at this that she said. So there's so many levels. And so now I went back to my bookshelf last night to get all the old, because I have a habit of jotting notes in the margins and all. So I wanted to see what I was thinking when I first read it and what I was thinking now. So I got to do this all over again. Yeah.
Allison, did you read Toni Morrison in school? Did you?
I'm sorry, what? In school, girl, man. She said, I thought she was gonna say at least in my 30s. She said in school. You took me out.
I thought you were going to say, that was such a while ago.
Did you read my bio? You said comedian, Allison Moore. You did not say doctor. That lets you know.
Okay, add that to your list.
It is. It is my list for my listeners. So some of us are here to learn. We're gonna learn. So I'm challenging some of us. We're gonna read Toni Morrison. We got 1 month before second Friday of next.
Exactly. It's for September.
Next September.
Right.
We're gonna read this book.
Absolutely.
And myself and brother Thomas, I'm going to challenge myself. Where have I gotten lost in the weeds and missed the heart of a message? So that's my personal philosophy challenge. Me and Brother Tom. All right, Brother Tom, you will call back next month. Don't let me be out here by myself, man.
Alien.
I happen to love Sula was one of my favorite books. And the thing that I love so much about Toni Morrison is the nakedness with which she wrote.
Yeah.
Like she did characters, and those characters, even though they are clothed, they were so naked in their emotions and their depictions and all of that, that you felt like you knew them. You were walking through the story with them, having the experiences, the hurts, the passion, the pain, all of that. And I think that she was such a gift because it takes an incredible genius to be able to move people from just looking at a page to coming into the page.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for that, I hope that this generation will have more of those kinds of genius inside of our community.
Let's talk to Heather in Virginia Beach. Hi, Heather. You're on the air.
Hey, girl, hey.
Yes, I'm calling to join this wonderful celebration of a wonderful artist, woman, writer, Dr. Toni Morrison, and I loved every word she wrote. The rawness is real, and I grieve her passing, and we do miss her.
Oh, thank you, Heather, so much for the call. What was your favorite book? Did you have a favorite?
Well, beloved, of course, but I did love Sula and The Bluest Eye, and I joined the book list, and every time she published, I got it and read it. I ate it up, and I cried, and I wept, and I hugged, and I loved, and thank God for her.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather, for the call. Thanks for calling, Heather.
Although Heather was gonna get roasted because she was crying, and if she would not have had an answer when you said what book, I'm like, Heather, come on now, Heather. But she came through. She had 3. Yeah, she was sincere. You can come to the
She
cookout.
was sincere. So we only have about 3-4 minutes left. So I want to kind of wrap up. I know it just goes on. Okay, let's see if we can get Joe in real quick. You can't talk long. Hi, Joe. You're on the air.
Hey, I wanted to say, as far as the Confederate statues, I've given them a lot of thought.
Okay.
And the fact that people have lost a war doesn't really affect whether they're going to commemorate the people they lost in the experience just because you lost, in other words. And even if another group has taken over the territory and this and that, just like we commemorate the Middle Passage and Wounded Knee and things like that.
Okay.
It's a loss. It's a loss for those people. So they commemorate it.
That's a good point. Thank you, Joe, for bringing that up. Go ahead. A museum will take care of that for you.
And I use humor in that situation because it was tense, but
to diffuse
the reaccolate.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, and I know I'm not supposed to have an opinion on anything, but I'm going to have an opinion on this one because I honestly, it bothers me to take away the statues completely, because I think that is the same way that certain groups have tried to whitewash our history and erase our history. I don't think that that's fair. I think that we need to have all of it so that we have a complete picture of everything.
Of the history of the country.
And I think that I'm actually with you. I have issues with schools being named after, Confederate generals and that, because nobody would be going to Hitler High School. So no Jew would you expect that of. So I don't think you should expect that of children of color, just to be clear. Okay.
Very good point.
But I absolutely do believe that the thing that we're doing poorly in America is facing the truths of America. And if we had to face the truths, I was just having a conversation with my husband this morning, and I was saying that I think that every legislator should have to see the images that come from these mass shootings, because you won't be able to look at that and still vote the way that you vote. Because while we hide and sanitize the truth, it allows us to maintain positions that are incredibly toxic and unhealthy for the nation. So I do believe I'm with you on that we don't need to erase the ugliness of our history, because it is America's original sin. We need to be able to look at it in its face and ensure that we never make the kinds of decisions that could make that some form of our reality in this current place.
Absolutely. Let's try to get Mary Alice in real quick. Hi, Mary Alice from Franklin. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hey,
You're all geniuses, and I just want to say
she wins.
I just want to say real quick, all of your programs are so important, and this one is incredibly so, and it's one that I have put on my list to listen to again, because, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I think it was Alvy's explanation of racist. It was like an epiphany for me, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to listen to the show again.
Thank you, Mary Alice. I really appreciate you so much. I want you all to know too, Mary Alice she's been one of the biggest supporters of Another View from day one, and we are so grateful from Franklin. She loves our show. So we are very, very grateful. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. So, ladies, the hour is up. My goodness, doesn't it go by very, very quickly? But I really do appreciate each of you. And anybody have anything? Are you performing anywhere you want to promote? Anything real quick?
No, people got to pay me for that. But I do want to shout out a friend of the family, Knight. He listens, and he is going through some health stuff, so he's in the hospital. So we're rooting for you, Knight, and he's a listener of this show.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, and we appreciate that. And we'll see you guys in September.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
And hey, audience, thank you so much for spending an hour of your day with us. If you want to hear this show again, head on over to our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download today's podcast, or listen to any of our other Another View programs. And while you're there, please sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. We're on Facebook, so like us, and I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. Next week on Another View, Norfolk Police Chief Larry Boone. He's done analysis of guns in Norfolk that you won't want to miss. Plus, we'll talk about other ways he is trying to make a difference in this city. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Special thanks to Jonah Grinkowitz for filling in for Lisa Godley. And special thanks to Victor Bowen. Welcome home, Victor, for filling in for Todd Washburn. Bobby Fuller answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Remember, a warm smile and a friendly hello goes a long way towards helping us all get along. Thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.